So we are doing exercise 7D, and in this video I'll be answering question 1AI, which says for each of the following, find a sequence of transformations that takes the graph of y equals x squared to the graph of y equals 2x minus 1 squared plus 3. Okay, so what is this asking of us? Well, previously in exercise 7C, we were given our sequence of transformations, and we applied it to a graph and arrived at a newly transformed graph. But hopefully you can see here we're doing the opposite thing. They've given us our newly transformed graph, and we now need to figure out what were the sequence of transformations that were applied to it in order to get it. So what you're going to see is in my working out, it's just going to be in the reverse order to what I was doing in exercise 7C. So in other words, the steps are going to be the same, but they're just going to be in opposite order. So my first step will be my last step, and my last step will be my first step. So with that introduction, let's now dive into it. So we know what we're trying to do is we're starting with xy, which will be a point, and we are transforming it and arriving at a new point, which we're calling x dash and y dash. Now we know that our original point lies on the graph y equals x squared. We know that. So let me write that underneath. We're then transforming this graph into this. Y equals 2x minus 1 squared plus 3. Now this is our newly transformed graph, and we know that this right here is our newly transformed point. So this is going to be a point that exists on this graph. So in other words, if I was to put x dash into this, I would get y dash out. Now I'm going to call that the first step. So the first step is simply putting in our x dash and y dash into our newly transformed graph. Okay, let's now move on to our second step. My second step is going to be rearranging this. So I'm going to write out y equals x squared, and I'm changing that. Now, I am going to minus 3 from both sides and then divide both sides by 2. And by doing that, I'm going to end up with y dash minus 3 over 2 equals brackets x dash minus 1 squared. So, that's our second step, doing this rearranging. So now, all I have on this side is simply what's inside my brackets. I've just got the squared thing here. Now, my third step. In my third step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that y equals this right here. And I'm going to say that x equals this right here. So, let me get my pen again. I'm going to say that y equals this. Y equals y dash minus 3 over 2. And x equals what's inside my brackets here. So x equals x dash minus 1. Now, let's stop for a second and really just remind ourselves what the aim of the game is. What are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is find out what my x dash and y dash are. And we're trying to figure out what they're going to be in terms of x and y. Because if we can figure that out, that's going to tell us what my sequence of transformations are going to be. So as you can see here, this is going to work great. So I just need to rearrange these two things right here so that y dash is my subject and x dash is my subject, and I'm going to have my answer. So let's continue. So my fourth step is going to be all right, I'm going to rearrange this so I just have y dash to one side. So I'm going to times by 2 and plus 3. So I'm just going to do this quickly, like that. So I times both sides by 2, and then I plus both sides by 3. And then I'll get y dash. And over here, I'm just going to plus both sides by plus 1. So I'm going to get x plus 1 equals y dash. So hopefully what you can see here is I figured out what my y dash is. Whoops. That should be x dash. Let me just write that in there. That should be x dash. So I figured out what my y dash is and what my x dash is. So let's just go up for a second. So I figured out what this is and what this is. I know that my x dash is going to be x plus 1, and I know that my y dash is going to be 2y plus 3. So I could come here and I could say, I'm starting with xy, my original point, I am then applying a transformation in which I'm going to plus 1 to my x-axis. And we know that that's going to mean I'm plussing 1 in the positive direction of my x-axis. Then I'm going to have 2y plus 3 because of that. And this is telling me I'm dilating by a factor of 2 from my x-axis. Remember that when I have a number in front of my y, it means it's dilating from the x-axis. And then I'm plussing 3, which means I'm going plus 3 in the positive y direction. Now, let's come here and look at the answer, because this is going to be important. All right, so let me get a highlighter out. So notice that it says here that the very first thing that I do is a dilation of a factor of 2 from the x-axis, and then I do my translations. So this is very important. The order of the transformations really do matter. So as you can see here, what's the first thing that happens to my y? And as you can see, hopefully just by BODMAS, you know that I'm multiplying it first. You can just tell by looking at it. I'm going to go 2y first, and then I'm going to plus my 3. So my first move here is a dilation of a factor of 2 from the x-axis. Then after that, I'm going to have my translations. So I'm going to plus 1, and that is written here, direction of the x-axis, and I'm going to plus 3, which is going to be 3 units in the positive direction of the y-axis. So hopefully you understand why the order has occurred in the way it has. This 2 is going to be first times in my y by 2, and then I'll plus by 3. So getting your order correct is really quite important. So hopefully this video has helped you answer 1AI. If you have any issues, come speak to me in class.